is the intersection between entrepreneurship, education, and justice. And we are going to, it's very interesting that we've been having this event this year because that is exactly what we're looking at, is access to justice. So we thought it was a really good opportunity for us to really question, well, we all talk about justice, but what do we mean by justice? What is justice? What are different definitions of justice? And then also thinking, okay, what is this intersection between these three areas? And so we're really happy that you're here, and we're really fantastic for this wonderful array of speakers. And without further ado, I will pass over to our wonderful chair, who is a UK MP. Uma, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello. Are you feeling refreshed after lunch? Okay, so don't get the post-lunch snoozies. I want you all to stay awake. My name is Uma Kumaran. I'm a Labour MP in the United Kingdom. My constituency is the home of the Olympics in East London. It is the best constituency in the country. These are my colleagues also. I'm a member of the UK Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm also a member of the executive group of women's parliamentarians for my party in Parliament. It's incredible to be here. There's a team of us out here. Put your hands up for the United Kingdom contingent. Well, there's a whole load of us here. This is how seriously we're taking it. If it was up to me, women would be running the world. But as we all know, we've got a long way to go. Listening to some of the panels from this morning, kind of my biggest reflection is how much talent there is around the world. We're not actually short of self-confidence either. Rightly, we're all very confident in what we can do, what we can achieve, who we are. But the systems that are around us don't let us succeed. The biggest issue that we're all facing, from whatever organizations we're from or whatever specialty you're from, are the barriers that have already existed to you to succeed. And the barriers that women face are so much more than men. And I was reading up about the panel and what we're talking about today, and it's not my natural home in terms of entrepreneurship or education or justice. So I was trying to understand it all and the complexities and the sort of interconnectedness of it all. The thing that struck me on everything is that these are all systems that have been designed by men. And so when you say, for example, to a woman entrepreneur, hard work and success, you can achieve it. Well, you're looking at this through a lens of a system that's been designed for men to succeed. And that's not to say that we're any less. Actually, we're much better. But the system that exists in itself is set up to not let us reach our full potential. And when you look at the intersectionality of the women that are involved, like all the women in this room, you see there is much more to be done. So that's kind of, from me, my thoughts. So this afternoon, we're speaking about how education, justice, and entrepreneurship, the intersection between them, and the panel, and we've got some brilliant speakers who I'm going to introduce. They're going to focus on what's understood by justice for women and girls, and they're going to share different perspectives and solutions. So I'm going to introduce each of the speakers, and then we're going to go in turn. And then, very excitingly, we're going to break out into small panels, which I know you're all very excited about. So we've got an incredible lineup of speakers sitting around the room. We've got apologies from one of our speakers who unfortunately can't be with us, the First Lady of Kwara State. But don't you worry, we've got an incredible panel nonetheless. So sitting to my left, we've got Natifa Ford. Hello, Natifa. Hello. Are you excited about today?
I am.
Great. Natifa is the Executive Director of NYC Her Future, and she has a focus on supporting youth and youth adults, particularly women of colour, breaking down structural barriers that obstruct their quality of life and prosperity. Then we've got Shimona. Where are you, Shimona? Hey, in front of me. I literally looked at you. Shimona, you are the convener of the Baha'i International Community of Addis Ababa. You work across issues, including the role of faith in communities in progressing sustainable development goals, which is something close to many of our hearts, and from environmental justice to gender equality. We've got Charlotte, who, like me, is from the UK. Charlotte, I got here that you're studying art and fashion in London.
Yeah.
I think you may be studying in my constituency as well. Charlotte is part of the National Alliance of Women's Organisations, the Young Women's Alliance, which represents over 100 groups to ensure that women gain access to human rights and gender equality. She's passionate about tech literacy and the impact of tech advancement on women's safety, particularly AI, which is really topical in Britain and around the world. And last but not least, Dorothy. Dorothy, you're a delegate for 15 years to the UN CSW, which is incredible. Professor on leadership and management at Columbia University here in New York. Also a playwright and author. Hopefully you'll be writing about these brilliant women soon. And you're currently writing a book about women over 50.
Yes, it's due next week to the publishers.
Incredible. Okay.
I'm here instead of working.
Lovely. So without further ado, I'm gonna go to Natifa.
Okay, wow. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the introduction and kind of grounding us in what the discussion is going to be today. As it was mentioned, my name is Natifa Ford, and I'm the founding executive director of NYC Her Future, which is a new office that was created. We're a year and a half years old to really address the disparities that young women are facing across New York City. When we say young women, that means a lot of things. I will say for our work, we sit under the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice. So it really shows the city's commitment to addressing these disparities, but also creating a space where we're talking about gender and equity in a real way and creating offices, but putting the funding behind it to support it. So under that umbrella is also New York City Commission for Gender Equity, which is kind of like a policy kind of think tank where they really focus on creating policies and working with our legislators to make sure that our policies are grounded and rooted in equity. And then also with us, we work closely with the mayor's office to end domestic and gender-based violence. So when I think about all of our work across the gamut, we're really serving our young people, but serving the communities and the elders that are there as well. So together across all of those partners, it is hitting economic justice, health, and safety for New York City. And then we can just continue to
continue our breakout. I love it, short and sweet, wonderful. Shimona, I'm coming to you.
So much. It's so lovely to be here. As it was mentioned, my name is Shimona. I'm from Addis Ababa, and I work at the Baha'i International Community Office there. We work closely with the African Union and other African organizations based on the continent. And we can all agree that the pursuit of justice is critical to the stability, cohesion, and progress of society. But historically, we've seen that institutional reforms that promote justice are often fragile and susceptible to shifts in power and priorities unless they are supported by a deeper evolution in mindsets, social norms, and collective culture. But how are these shifts in foundational attitudes and values fostered amongst the generality of the population? And my presentation today is going to draw on insights from grassroots experience, specifically from the experiences of Baha'i communities and their wider circle of friends, although on a small scale, to really offer a practical window into how populations cultivate a lasting commitment to justice and gender equality. And a striking capacity in this regard is the capacity of women and men to jointly consult on the challenges facing their society, allowing them to collectively determine and implement the most effective responses to the needs of their population. Now, one example of what this could look like is actually an example from the village of Katiola in Zambia, in Southern Africa, where the struggle has been for many decades of young people completing their secondary education, which was a major social issue. Girls often fell pregnant and ended up in early marriages, and only a few youth, especially boys, were privileged enough to complete their secondary education. And these challenges and the responsibility for responding to them were left primarily to the families. Now, through ongoing reflection on concepts such as justice and agency, a group of residents transformed their approach to social issues, moving from passive observation to active participation to address systemic local challenges. Rather than leaving the problem to mothers alone, this diverse group of youth parents, and community leaders began a process of deep consultation on shared responsibility and how to provide holistic quality education to the village. The result, a locally run community secondary school, staffed by teachers from within the village who were intimately familiar with the students' social and cultural reality. Today, the school provides both academic and moral education to approximately 200 children. But this wasn't just about enrollment. It was tangible evidence of a community's capacity to dismantle barriers to justice, in this case, equal access to education, by collectively analyzing their needs and mobilizing their own local resources. This experience also reveals to us that justice extends far beyond the courtroom. For social and economic reforms to endure, it requires the coordinated effort of individuals, communities, and institutions to foster relationships and sustain true progress. Another example, and my last one, comes from the village of Kanjibu in South Kivu in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa, where we can see how justice is applied to the economy. A group of women and men were meeting weekly to learn how to translate moral principles such as justice, truthfulness, and dignity into practical solutions for the community's social needs. Despite a strong entrepreneurial spirit, the community faced high unemployment and a lack of financial opportunity. But for them, this was not just an economic hurdle. It was a matter of justice, the fundamental right of every individual to contribute to and benefit from the prosperity of their society. In response, this group of women and men established a self-governed community banking initiative titled Collective Effort for Shared Prosperity. By treating economic participation as a right rather than a privilege, they created a system where loans were backed by collective consultation and social support. And before any loan was granted, the group collectively analyzed the project to ensure no one was left alone. This transformed entrepreneurship from a lonely, risky venture into collective investment in their shared future. Now, these examples, although on a small scale, remind us that while it is vital to acknowledge justice in principle, it is, or the real challenge and the real opportunity is giving it collective expression. This raises a question which we can hopefully address here today, and which is the question I will end with, is what is required to build consultative systems at the national and regional levels that consistently treat grassroots insight as vital and legitimate knowledge for shaping policies of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shimon. Going to Charlotte.
Firstly, I just want to say thank you to the panel. I'm really honoured to be able to speak alongside such an amazing woman. I also apologise because I will be reading from my notes quite heavily. I've not had quite as much time to prepare as I'd like. But I'm speaking today as a youth delegate for Norway, so it felt right to speak on a topic that I see firsthand. And I'm a current student in the UK education system. So I'm not speaking on anything abstract. I'm reflecting on a system that I'm still living in. And I know this isn't representative for education for girls globally, but it's my lived experience. So in the UK, we often describe education as fair, which in a lot of ways is true. And we're told that if you work hard, you'll succeed. And statistically, in a lot of ways, girls are succeeding. In secondary education, girls achieve higher grades than boys across most core subjects. And in 2023, female students aged 16 to 19 achieved around a grade and a half higher than male students. And young women are also more likely to progress into higher education. Between 2010 and 2021, the number of girls accepted onto full-time STEM undergraduate courses rose by almost 50%. So on paper, that looks like equality. But attainment is not the same as justice, and progress does not mean that the system is neutral. I went to what you would describe as a very feminist and forward-thinking school. It was innovative, and it challenged girls' leadership, and it celebrated empowerment. And I'm very grateful for my education, because I wouldn't be here today without it. But yeah, we did compulsory sewing in school, when next door at the neighbouring boys' school, they did engineering. So no one explicitly said girls couldn't build, and no one said boys couldn't sew, but the structure spoke for itself, and it has for centuries prior. And that's how gendered expectations work. They're often quiet and normalized and wrapped in tradition, but they don't stay in childhood. Those early signals shape confidence, and they shape subject choices, and they shape who feels comfortable walking into a lab or a coding workshop, then later on into a pitch room. So nationally, only around 23% of A-level physics students are girls, and in computer science, the numbers are similarly low. So women make up just around a quarter of the UK STEM workforce. And when we look at innovation funding, the gap widens further. All female founder teams receive only a tiny percentage of UK venture capital investment each year, and this begins in classrooms. And once internalized, those roles influence career confidence, risk-taking, and economic participation. Education is not just about knowledge acquisition, it is about identity formation. And girls are often praised for their neatness and emotional intelligence. Boys are more often encouraged to experiment and challenge. And these traits later align closely with how we define innovative leadership as risk-taking and assertive. So when women enter entrepreneurial or male-dominated spaces, we're not only navigating bias in that moment, we're often undoing years of conditioning about what feels natural to us, and that has economic consequences. The UK government has repeatedly highlighted that increasing women's participation in STEM and entrepreneurship can add billions to the economy. And studies found companies with diverse leadership are 21% more likely to outperform their peers. If we want to level the playing field in business, we cannot just wait for the disparity of funding to be fixed. We must examine the educational structures. So what does this policy look like? Funding must be paired with education reform. If we increase funding for female entrepreneurs without addressing the pipeline problem, we are treating the symptom and not the cause. Finally, youth voices must be embedded in policy design. Students understand these dynamics so intimately and quite often more than realized. We all know that the issue isn't that girls lack ambition, it's that systems quietly narrow our sense of possibility at a young age. Those experiences shape comfort levels, they shape a distorted view of identity, and they shape who hesitates before putting themselves forward. And those hesitations accumulate. If we're serious about justice, we must recognize the foundation. Thank you.
I'll go over to Dorothy.
Hi. Okay, I'm gonna move around here. I'm gonna write some numbers up here, and you're gonna either guess or figure out. So 19 and 21. Okay, so nobody knows what those are yet, right? Okay, so I want to talk about entrepreneurs and education and so on. And if you look at globally, the women earn less than men. Does anybody disagree with that? You know, it's like 83 cents on the dollar globally that women earn. When I started my career a number of years ago, the United States was 72 cents. So we've moved up, but we're not quite there yet. And so I want to talk about what the implications of those are. And the first number I have here is related to, can you guess what it might be related to the wage gap of women to men? Pardon me?
When we have zero.
Yes, very good. Oh my God, we get a start. Yes, it's gonna take, if we go at the rate we're going now, it's when we get to zero, when we get parity, when we get equity. So it's 134 years. If we go at the rate we're going now, none of us are going to be alive unless you have, into some new age kind of thing. So that's the depressing part. I'm going to get to some more uplifting parts here. But we have startups globally. Our women are increasing the number, but they're slightly less than men. But the thing about women is that if you look at startups and bringing innovative markets to practice, women are better than men. And women own a third of the businesses worldwide. And startups for women in some countries, there are some countries that, I don't like the term developing, what's a new word for developing countries? Emerging economies, that's right, okay. I knew that. So some of them have a 60% increase in the rate of women who have startups. But there's a finance gap because men go and they can get a loan, and women it's difficult. I'm finishing a book now, which she was just saying about women over 50. And I've interviewed 80 women, and one of them who's 50, she's a high-tech executive. She said, I gained more confidence when I started looking around and seeing some of the men around me weren't as smart as they acted. Yeah. So that's what happens. You go in for a loan because there's a lot of research that show women act less confidently, men act more confidently. But okay, you're cool, right? Okay. So you go in for a loan and the guy's like, I can do this, yeah. And the woman's like, well, I'm really considering this and this and that. And the person who's giving the loan, who's probably a man, he's going, oh, no, she doesn't. She's not going to be able to make it go. So we're going to give the money to him. Worldwide, there's a $1.7 trillion gap between funding for new businesses for men and women. 1.71 trillion. I don't even know how much that is. I know they said if Elon Musk sat down and counted each of his dollars, it would take like 400 years or something. He's not at 1.7 trillion, so it's a lot of money. And here's the other thing that, who knows what the world, how many women there are in the world? It's 4.13 billion. That's a lot. How many of those women still face barriers to fill in economic participation? What percentage do you think it is? 100? Well, it's close, 94%. 3.9 billion women in the world. And I'm thinking most of us in this room are gonna, right. I've been a management teacher and consultant for many years, and the older you get, the more you see guys who aren't as smart as you are getting stuff that you should have got, right? So again, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Okay, so what, we've had to put up with, all this stuff for so long, so it's true. Okay, so what do you think, if I just image it, if I say business leader, what do you think of? What do you see? What kind of picture do you see?
Pale white.
Pardon?
Pale white male.
Yeah, thank you, pale white male. In fact, there's a lot of research on that in the United States, not only pale and white, but tall and blonde. I mean, they were promoted faster. So, and entrepreneurs, a lot of times you think of a man, and when you say caregiver of children, does a tall, white, pale man?
No.
Okay, so there's, in the world, 47% of businesses that women start are closed because of personal or family reasons. That's almost half. Why? Because there's a tension between caregiving and business, which is one problem we need to solve. But on the other side, startup rates are rapidly increasing in Jordan and Morocco. Anybody here from those countries? Okay, well, say, yeah. Do you see that in your country? Morocco, do you see it? Do you see a lot of women starting businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, so now the gender gap, this is from the World Economic Forum. We've got a gender gap difference of which on different levels. It's looking at health and survival, educational attainment, economic participation, political empowerment is 68, almost 69%. So that means we're at 69% of where men are in those four areas. And that would take till 2149 for us to achieve equality if we go at the rate we're going now. The country that's the highest, anybody have a guess who might be the highest?
Scandinavia.
Pardon?
Scandinavia.
Well, yeah, Iceland. So there you go. Why do you think that is? Anybody have an idea why? Yes.
The women's strike day in the 70s.
Oh, so the women stood up for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. In the top 10 countries, it's at 80%. So it means, we're moving, but again, 49, it's a long time away. So these 4 things, it's health and survival. So that means, if you're not healthy, you can't really work hard. And your survival, that's how long you're gonna live, if you die young, it's not gonna help. Your educational attainment, the economic participation, and political. So each of these is different. So the health and survival, we're at 96% in the world. That's pretty cool. But then the lowest one is political part, we're at 23%. And this one is 95 and economic is 61. So, but it's moving ahead. But I want you to to the person next to you, I want you to take 1 minute, just with 2 people talking about which of these 4, I don't know if you're ready, which of these 4 do you think is one that you could start with because when all of these increase, women are going to be able to participate, the entrepreneurs. If you were in a group, which one would you pick to work on? Okay, go ahead, 1 minute. Couple people, what did you come up with?
Well, we were saying education to then build like political platform, but then we were also saying that starting an education system starts with a good political platform. So it's a bit of a loophole.
Okay, so it's like the chicken and egg, right? You were talking over here.
I think both angles stronger for us because that's where we use power. I've seen a lot of education we don't together with the culture.
Yeah.
Because of the efficiency.
And so I want you to think about these 4 in terms of entrepreneurship, because if you don't have health, which we're pretty good shape, but you can't really work because it takes a lot of energy to start a company. If you don't have education, you don't know what to do. I can tell you the number of people who've come to me over the years that want to start a business, but they don't think it through. Like I was teaching at Arizona State University, this guy wanted to start a company with kayaks. I said, we're in the middle of the desert, anyway, and economic, right? If you don't have access to money and credit and so on, and able to sign a loan without your husband or your parents' signature, it's going to be an impediment. And then if you're not seen, so all of these impact entrepreneurs. Some countries have really strict regulations about women not being able to get in without family members. And again, education. So I want to close with that. Yes. So in order for us to achieve on these indices, equality in all of them, it's going to take us to 2178. So that's 162 years. If we keep up the same pace, my challenge to you is let's speed up the pace, okay? Thank you.
Oh, okay, did you enjoy that? Yes. Excellent, I can feel the energy in the room. I'm going to stay standing. which means you're gonna have to be short. I'm gonna give every group a minute to come back with their reflections. I'm going to pick on the first person I know is an ally in the room. I'm gonna go over to them. Please stand up, say your name. Name? Riyadh, well done for going first. You're gonna set the example, okay?
Okay.
Short and sharp, one thing you've liked, one thing you've learned, one action, and what was it that you were discussing?
Okay, first I will say thank you so much for receiving us here. It's super interesting to have this conversation. The first thing that we discussed actually was about this thing right here. It was super interesting. We learned a lot as a student. And we went on a debate again about those four things. And we actually figured out that they are all kind of correlated, so we don't have to choose one actually.
Yes.
So
That's what you've learned?
yeah, that's what we learned. And an action will be that we need to need to be more educated through politics, actually. Because if we are more educated through politics, politics is where all the power is. So if you're educated through politics, you have all the power in the world, actually.
I wish I had all the power in the world. I don't.
The second thing that we debate about was AI, actually. I don't know why we went through this, but it was like that. And the things about AI, because there is a little bit of a gap, and it can lead to misunderstanding. We went talking to AI because we talked about education. And if there is a lot of misunderstanding and miseducation, it leads to poverty. So we thought that AI was not a great solution, and we need to make some laws because there is a gap in some laws with AI. And the solution about that was to make trademarks and stuff like that in the AI. Yeah, so that was it.
Love it. I like the
Thank
bonus
you so much.
question. You set a high bar. I'm gonna mix it. I'm gonna go behind. Here we are. I'm going to say your name, what you've liked, what you've learned, and your action.
So my name's Hannah. I'm actually from the same school as Riyadh. So the main subject that we've discussed was the educational point of view. So what we really liked was the increase of awareness about the disparities between the men and the women in society today. We've learned the significant of these significant disparities between these men and these women, as well as the cultural differences that we discussed in our groups between, for example, France, where we're from, and England, where they're from. And the action we really want to put forward in this case is to teach public speaking skills to children throughout their whole education, whether it be primary school, secondary school, up to higher education.
Brilliant. We're mixing it up. I'm going to this corner. My French friend, come forward, tell us.
Hello, my name is Vincent.
You thought I was joking.
I'm also from the same school.
Yes. Keep going with.
So we discussed about the major problems women face today, about discrimination, pay gap, but also the lack of aid due to entrepreneurship. We took the difference also with France. France has a bit more of aid to women's entrepreneurs, but not as much. And I was wondering how as a man, as a student, but also maybe as a future entrepreneur, how I could put into my company this equality to women, because a woman can be part of my family, a friend, can be everything. So, and a woman could have also and will have the same responsibility as me. So us as future entrepreneurs, we have to put this in.
So that's the action. You're taking that forward. You heard it here today. I'm looking over at this corner. There are two groups there, so I'm going to go to the group at the back. Please stand up. Off you go. Take it away.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Guerra. I work with the TIFA and the for Future. And our group, we spoke mainly about caregiving and the tension between caregiving and entrepreneurship, which is what we identified as the most interesting aspect of what was brought up today. because a lot of the people in our group felt seen by identifying with them. And something that we learned was how cultural norms impact our ability to be parents and work. Specifically with community support, we talked about how some cultures it's normal for a whole family to pitch in on child rearing, and then at the same time being expected to do nothing more than take care of a child. And then we also talked about how having children with different needs, particularly special needs, makes it even more difficult for people to pursue options outside of the And something that we are taking with us forward, other than staying connected, is considering how caregiving is dictated by affordability and our access to opportunities to take care of our children. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're uplifting those who have and choose to be caregivers, and making sure that it is not only something that women have to do, but something that they're empowered to do.
Thank you very much. Team over here, and I'm going to my friend with the sash, who's come prepared.
Thank you so much. We had a really interesting.
What's your name?
My name is Swati. I'm from SIGB.
There you go.
Representing SIGB, and I'd like to talk about what we discussed here today. So we talked about something interesting called audacity, and a women's agency. We felt that we don't exercise it as much, although the government is encouraging us, the education institutions are encouraging us, but when we do face structural barriers, we do recognize that we don't push as far when we face the first challenge. So for instance, when we were talking about entrepreneurship here, we looked at if a man goes to apply for funding for his business idea, the best he would do is present his business idea and he would either get a yes or a no. A woman, on the other hand, when seeking funding for her business idea, would be asked questions such as what would happen if you decided to get married? What would happen if you decided to have children? And she wouldn't know how to answer that. And it's really important that in educational institutions, we're teaching women how to answer those questions and put your idea forward in a way that gets you funding in the first place. And the other idea we talked about in school was that educational institutions aren't the only ones which are responsible for encouraging gender equality. All the universities, schools, and other primary institutions where education is provided do tend to become gendered institutions, but it's also important for parents and carers to teach their children how to be an adult, because when adults are dealing with things like applying for a loan or going to the bank, we don't actually tend to not take our children because we tell them this is not for you, this is for the adults to do. So it's really important that we're teaching them these steps, these major smaller steps, so that they can learn firsthand from their real world experiences.
So and what's the action from this with this group?
The action from this is for parents and carers to take their children to the banks, teach them about loans, teach them about business funding if they're the entrepreneur, so that they can build an entrepreneur in their homes themselves.
Incredible. Thank you so much. One more group. How many groups have left? The two groups. So I'm going over here. What's your name?
My name is Aisha, and I
Aisha.
represent the British Federation of Women Graduates.
Love it.
What my group and I liked is the education, but we saw it as academic, we saw it as moral, and we think that it's equal for all. What we learned is that globally, the route to go forward is very similar wherever you are in the world, and it's very important to really emphasize the community role, the carer, the giver, and the parent in that. To move hopefully a little bit before 2178, could be just 2158. The action that we wanted from that is more women at higher level, more number of women, not only one, that are spread out thinly. We really emphasize the male allies that will push the gender equality, the policies forward. And the last but not least is legal education. that will allow more access to justice, and that will give the proper data and doesn't skew when policies are made and we don't have the raw data, the real life of what happened. But that will happen from legal education that will get girls to go and seek for their rights. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And our last group over here, last but not least. What's your name?
Oh, sorry, my name's Sama. I'm here with with National Lights Women's Organisation. We were thinking particularly about the point that Charlotte made about how a lot of students in school, female students in the school, were automatically put into sewing classes, and we were having a discussion there about what does equal opportunity for girls' education look like, and then like moving forward and how that affects the futures of women and girls, and then also the action to look ahead in the value that we place on the different elements of work that women find themselves in, so whether it's teaching, childcare, like reevaluating that. And we really enjoyed the energy in the room and the discussion. It was fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Speakers, I'm going to come back to you actually, because I'm really interested to hear your reflections. So can I follow the example of our incredible spokespeople in the room? Keep it short, keep it sweet. Shimona, I'm going to come to you. What are your reflections from this? Have you got anything that, have you learned anything different? Has any of the conversations sparked a different sort of thought process, or has it reaffirmed what you thought already?
It's reaffirmed for me the role of education, but that it's an expanded conception of education beyond just academic, but also looking at the moral side of it as well, and seeing how one can apply values and action. And secondly, also this idea of the role of the community was also echoed. It's not just the responsibility of institutions, but also of individuals, of communities working together to contribute to a path of development that is shared by all. And I enjoyed the diverse perspectives and this sort of idea that education is really at the heart of development, and how can we engage collectively, not just not just youth, but also older friends, to collectively develop a vision for development that is united, so that women alongside men can work together to contribute to the progress of our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte, any reflections on today?
I guess we were like speaking in our group about kind of catching the issue young and educating children politically. Also like the point of like taking children to the bank and taking children through these processes. The younger I think people learn about this, the more likely they are to make a change. If they feel like that change is accessible to them, they're so much more likely to go after that. So I think, yeah, that's my main reflection.
So, I want to just say thank you. You guys have been really awesome, and I appreciate your facilitation. It's been very concise. So I'm gonna wrap this up before you get back next. But I do want to say this conversation has confirmed the work that we're doing at NYC The Future. I never shared our mission, and our mission is very clear and it's urgent. It's to ensure that every young girl and young women and all those who identify as such in New York City possess the intellectual capital, essential skills, and supportive social network required to realize their full potential and long-term well-being. We do it through all the things that were mentioned here. We understand that your culture, your tradition, the households that you come from play such a critical role in who you're going to become, but also in how we educate you. So one of the things that I'm taking away from this conversation, and I want you guys to think about it, the word of equality. We're no longer fighting for equality. We're fighting for equity. Everybody has the opportunity to get ahead, but the reality is some people need more support than others. So we are no longer giving systems and policies out that serve all, because within that are disparities that we have to address. Also, when I think about the data pieces, I want you guys to really think about the data that was mentioned was really the comparison between white men and white women. We did not talk about Black women. We did not talk about Asian women. We did not talk about Indigenous women. So we really do have to have those conversations and lift it up in a way that is comfortable when we're having these conversations without people feeling bothered or getting uncomfortable because we're calling something out. The work is the work, and the collective win is for the collective group of individuals. We understand the disparities that women are facing, but even more, we have to look at it across racial disparities. We are not doing we are doing a disservice if we're only focusing on the big picture items. Our women win when everybody wins and everybody has a seat at the table. So in my group, we spoke collectively, and I bothered the guys back here because I said, how are you gonna know somebody's going through menopause at your job and they need a fan, right? And they were like, like you have no idea why we're burning up. And these are the conversations that we have to have in a space that is full, that is whole, and that is in community. And the one community that we all have to participate in, whether we decide to or not, is the community of government. We are all a part of the community of government, and that means our civic actions, our political duty is to show up and be involved. We can't expect our politicians to do everything if we're not telling them what we need as constituents. We can expect our educators to do everything if our parents are not in the schools. We cannot expect our banks and financial institutions to be everything. We have to realize we have always had community, and within those communities we thrive. We have always had community reinvestment funds where we invest in each other, where we're supporting one another, and sometimes it really goes back to our social networks. We have to pull as we're climbing. It is the social networks and is the fabric of womanness, womanhood that will ensure that we're doing better as a collective. So when we speak as a collective, think about the other women that are not at the table and think about the challenges and disparities that they're faced, because the fact that we're all here means that we are a little bit more privileged because we have a voice. So I'll leave there. Thank you.
We're not on our panel, but I think you got some questions together. Is there anything? We've got a couple more minutes, guys. Let's keep it focused. Is there anything that I'm going to come to Dorothy last, but I want to see if you had any reflections.
I'll come back at the end.
Oh, okay. Dorothy.
Well, I'm so impressed with the engagement of this group. And one thing that I really liked was the awareness that it's not only the systems and the barriers, but it's how we face those. It's like I teach organization change also, and when you're doing organization change, you have to change the system, but you also have to change people. You have to raise their consciousness. In the case of women, it's like the public speaking, that you mentioned, and taking to the bank, helping them to be more confident, letting them know they can keep pushing, which is something men do more naturally. But we're just, so it's both the barriers and also how do we face those.
Thank you, Dorothy.
And one of the things that's interesting, I think, about entrepreneurship and business is that past ideas have been that you have to be ruthless in order to survive. You have to be selfish in order to survive. And one of the things that ebbf really tries to promote is that's not the case. In fact, what we find around the world is the businesses that thrive are the ones that look after their people and look after the people who buy from them or whom they serve. And so one of the things that we look at in ebbf is what are the virtues that we need to have and need to promote in our workplace, whether we're entrepreneurs or whatever. So what about truthfulness? You just think about trustworthiness. Wouldn't it be nice if your plumber turned up on time? Wouldn't it be nice if your bank was always right in the statements they write, that you don't make a mistake? So trustworthiness, truthfulness, kindness, compassion, these are qualities that all of us need in our lives, and we need to have them in every part of our business as well. So this is one of the things that ethical business building the future is all about, is to enable us to think about these questions when we're looking at the workplace, because most people spend some time in the workplace, and some people spend more time in the workplace than anywhere else, especially in the US, unfortunately. So what we need to do is to make sure that the qualities that we have, our values, our ethics that we have in all parts of our lives, we also bring them into the workplace. In terms of advance, as I said earlier on, Wendi and I set this organization up many years ago. And we really wanted to look and see, to make sure that we constantly recognize this intersection between education and justice. Why are women in prison? Why do women fall foul of the criminal justice system? It's often because of social inequalities and lack of education. And as we've noticed, there is an intersection, it's true. But when women are educated, when girls get their 12 years quality education, there is so much research to show that with 12 years quality education, their life chances change completely. And when you educate a girl, you educate a community. And women are the ones who hold communities together the world over. And women are more than 50% of the world's population. So educating women and educating girls can change the world. So what we need to do is really concentrate on that. And education, not just in schools, but across the life course, informal education as well. So I think those are some of the comments that I would like to make. And I have just to say about teaching kids entrepreneurship. My kids, when they got to 15, they had to account for what they were spending their money on. And when they showed me their accounts, they got their allowance. It wasn't pocket money, it was an allowance. Because they don't get pocket money, they're expected to do, they live in this house, they're expected to do chores. And it's very interesting because my son set up his own business and is a real entrepreneur, and all of them have done okay. So I think this idea about teaching children financial literacy is super important.
Thank you, Zarin. Keep having with massive round of applause for Ziad, for Hannah, for Vincent, for Stephanie, for Swati, for Aisha, and for Sama. For summing up so beautifully your conversations. I think the power of this room has definitely made me reignited a fire in my belly to go back and take the good fight back to Britain. Look, I'm a politician in the United Kingdom, newly elected just 18 months ago. Put myself forward thinking, if you want to see a job done right, you need to get a woman to do it, and that's why I put myself forward. But actually, I pay tribute to the women who've come before me because it's not an easy system to navigate. And the conversations that we've had, I've been nodding along so vigorously to so many of it because it's reflected in politics too, by the way, right? We have our own barriers. We have things that are barriers to our own success, barriers to us speaking up, making our voice heard, but also the expectation on us is to change the system too. And so definitely we've got to stay ambitious. We heard today that women and girls represent half the world's population. That also means we have half of the world's potential. And if we don't unlock the potential, and if we keep these barriers up, we are never going to have the world that we all want to live in. So I want to leave it at that. I want to give you back a couple of minutes because I want you to be connected with one another. Make friends, follow each other on whatever socials you choose. I won't publicize one over the other. Stay connected. The friendships and relationships that you make here at this year's CSW will stand you in good stead for the future. And who knows who someone in this room is today and what may one day be. So thank you. Thank you for taking part. My name is Uma. Stay in touch with me too.